The fight is being finalized. Another big one getting announced. Jiri Prochazka versus Glover Teixeira 2, which was, in my opinion, one of the greatest fights of all time. Definitely one of the greatest light heavyweight fights of all time. Looks like it's going to go down on December 10th for UFC 282, and that is going to be the last pay-per-view card of the year. And after they announced that Jan Blachowicz is going to be fighting Magomed Ankalaev, which is most likely going to be for the #1 contender, I think everybody already knew what the light heavyweight title fight was going to look like. Jiri versus Glover 2 is a fight that we all want. That both the fighters wanted it. Even Jiri, who won their fight, wanted to run it back and have a more dominant win. The fight was back and forth. It looked like Glover was actually a little bit ahead in that 5th round, but Jiri is always dangerous and looking for the finish. And crazy, he pulled off a submission win against Glover, the first man ever in Glover's 45 professional career to submit him. And it's Jiri Prochazka of all people. Someone who everybody thought would have a lesser grappling skill, even compared to some of the best fighters in the light heavyweight division right now. The guy now only has a total of 3 submission wins in his career. Jiri has not submitted someone since 2014 when he fought Viktor Pogutsky. It's been 8 years since he was able to pull off a submission on somebody, and then he does it against Glover Teixeira. That is another reason why you have to consider that first one to be one of the greatest fights of all time. The back and forth on the feet, Glover did so well in the striking, much better than we all expected. At that healthy 42-year-old age, it looked like Glover was at the absolute best of his career. Some guys just age differently, man, but he's going to be 43 when they fight each other again. And they both took a lot of damage, but it's different when you're 40 plus. It would be very surprising to me if Glover could go into the rematch the same way after taking all of that damage. It's different when you take damage in your 20s. You could bounce back and recover. When you're 40 plus, I don't know if you're able to come back after that the same way. The body is most likely going to want to shut down. The body's most likely not going to want to go through something like that again. Age is definitely going to be a big factor in the fight. That is an enormous part of this because you can't overlook someone being 42 years old, taking all that damage, coming back the same way against someone who's younger than 30 years old. The result of that fight most likely is going to have a different kind of effect on each of these fighters here, which makes me believe that the rematch might not be as back and forth as the first one was, but we thought the first fight wasn't going to be that close. This rematch might be again a barn burner, but I'm expecting a more one-sided win here, and that also means an explosive, crazy finish to go with it. When Jiri wins emphatically, it's always some crazy finish. Something you always remember, like the spinning elbow against Dominic Reyes, the right hook on Volkan Oezdemir. Look at the knockout win against CB Dalloway or Fabio Maldonado. This guy's finishes are always memorable. And Glover's method of finishing is always nice and clean and concise. And that's what we want to see from two finishers. Either Glover can get Jiri back to the ground and finish him early this time, or I see, following the damage from the first fight, Jiri's able to finish Glover off with some powerful strikes. Because remember what was happening in the first fight. Many times both guys got the other in a dominant position, in a position where they could finish their opponent off. But they made some big mistakes, big errors, and it caused so many scrambles everywhere when it came to the striking, when it came to the grappling. And no, it wasn't just Glover Teixeira. A lot of people point to when he pulled the guillotine when he shouldn't have after he had Jiri hurt. Jiri made a lot of big errors as well, like following Glover to the ground after he rocked him, the way he was defending takedowns. The takedown defense of Jiri Prochazka definitely got him in a lot of trouble, not necessarily because he was easy to get taken down, but it was the method, the technique that he was using in order to defend the takedown, the Granby rolls. Jiri Prochazka is way too tall for rolling like that. He rolls from one side of the cage to the other. If he's able to develop solid, fundamental, straightforward takedown defense, using his hips, sprawling, throwing in the wizard, depending on what kind of takedown the Glover is going to come at him with, I think things are going to be a lot easier for him, as long as he can keep it on the feet. And you start to notice when Jiri was sticking to more fundamental boxing instead of doing his usual creative chakra-infused striking that he created for himself, he was having much more success. He was landing the shots a lot easier. The uppercuts are always going to be there just like they were in the first fight. Keeping a jab on Glover and managing distance is going to be a big key to victory here. And I would say that's too much to ask for a fighter that's been doing this for so long, that has this creative, unique, exciting style for so long, but he did it in the first fight. That's the thing. Whenever he got into his creative ways, he was starting to get hit and he was starting to get taken to the ground. When he went to the fundamental ways, he was having a lot of success, and that's both offensively and defensively. I mean, I remember in the 5th round when Glover rocked Jiri and looked like the fight might have been over, Glover caught him with a big right overhand, but it was literally because Jiri dropped his hands to channel his chakra. That was literally the reason why he got hit. If he just kept his hands up a little bit more, these punches would not be able to land as easily as they were. But then again, that's not really Jiri's style. He likes to go to this stuff. He feels comfortable in the octagon doing that kind of stuff, and for the most part, it's working for him, but he has some bad scares in that fight with Glover. I do expect, though, his grappling is going to be much better coming into the rematch. I think he's going to have a better time handling himself on the ground, and ultimately, at the end of the day, I think that 1-2 combo is going to be so big for him, keeping the jab on Glover the whole time, and then potentially even trying to finish him off with uppercuts. That's how I could potentially see how this fight is going to end. I ultimately do side with Jiri Prochazka. I don't think it's going to be super easy one way or the other, but Jiri's showing his grappling skill in the first fight. The fact that he is much younger and he's learning at a rapid pace, I think he's going to hone his skills on the ground, whereas Glover is kind of who he is already. At 43 years old, he's already a complete package. He's at the prime of his career, whereas Jiri might not even be in his prime yet. And that's the scary thing. That's why I'm going to have to ultimately go with Jiri Prochazka. Most of it is because of age. Age from recovering from the damage that they took in the first fight to how much they're going to learn in the second, the attributes that Jiri naturally possesses over Glover Teixeira, and the fact that Jiri is going to be the one that can probably adapt more into the second than Glover Teixeira is going to be. Glover fights everybody kind of the same way. The guy I do feel kind of bad for, though, is Jamal Hill, because he's kind of left out with all of this.